Rob, thank you for joining us today. Obviously, it's the start of Youth Development Week, a very important campaign to highlight the successes of academies and young players coming through the EFL. Let's start by touching on our under-18s, a victory over Port Vale on Saturday. What did you make of the performance and how they're getting along this season as well?
Performance on Saturday was really good in parts. Maybe not as good in other parts as most performances are, right? But in general, lots more positives than negatives. Really young group again, so only 3 second years. 2 second years involved in the group on Saturday. Another under 15 making an under 18 debut. So really young group, positive performance. Charlie Ragg scores another 2 goals. We were a couple of players down, so Dylan didn't play, Caden obviously didn't play, who we'll talk about, which gave others an opportunity to step up, and 1 or 2 players actually, stepped up and maybe showed a little bit more than they have done because of the need without those 2 players in the group. So on the whole, really positive. In general, really happy with where they're at. I say to you all the time, Paul, about look beyond results because it's not the be-all and end-all. However, if you want to look at results, they've lost 1 in 4. There's been an upturn, and it kind of follows that pattern. It follows a similar pattern last year. As you get towards the end of the season, lots more younger players playing. We start to see a little bit of an improvement. So, on the whole, positive, and look forward to Stockport on Saturday.
You mentioned a few individuals there. Firstly, let's touch on Caden Bennett because I think his call up to St Kitts and Nevis in the senior squad as well. That's really a standout moment, not just for him, but for the academy as well. So, first of all, as someone you've worked with, how proud are you of him and how proud are you, for Walsall Football Club as well for this recognition?
Listen, we're really proud of him, right? And I've just said to somebody else, it's on Caden really, right? It's not on us. We endeavour to facilitate an environment where they can develop and flourish and make the most of whatever ability and talent they have. But in the end, it's on them, right? So they get selected on what they do, not what we do. But really proud of him. Really pleased for us. Really pleased for him. Really pleased for his family. Great for the club. I wouldn't know the last time a 17-year-old Walsall player had a senior national team call up. And, maybe never. I don't know. So yeah, really positive. More once more now though, right? So I want him to get a debut and get a cap, right? So that's the next bit, but. Really happy for him, thoroughly well deserved. He's a great kid, and I'm sure it will only help him moving forward. So yeah, really positive.
Caden was one of, I think, 7 in total academy players on the bench against Shrewsbury, but that included himself, George Barrett, Dylan Thomas, Charlie Ragg and Jay Layden. So let's talk about that group. First, I think Dylan Thomas has already made a couple of first team appearances. I know he's unfortunately suffered a couple of injuries along the way as well, but as it's Youth Development Week as well, raised in the EFL, I've seen so many players come and make their debuts in lower league clubs and go on to do great things. So for Dylan this season, probably been the standout in terms of getting first team minutes. So how pleased are you that he's been able to do that this season?
Yeah, so just the injury, it's not as bad as everyone thought. So he got injured with the first team last week training, but it's soft tissue, I think, so it'll be a couple of weeks, so it's no major ordeal, which is good. He's kind of been the standout probably this year because he's made debuts and so on. But listen, the boy's got talent. There's no question about it. Another one. He's a great kid. It's been really important for me since being here that when we recruit players, we don't just recruit what we think are good footballers, but good people, good kids, good characters that are going to bring something to the building and have the personality to progress and make it through the system. So Dylan's a great lad, thoroughly deserved what he's had this year. Feedback from the first team is always really positive, trains really well. He spent more time this year with them than he has with us, which is a positive thing for him. So yeah, in terms of Dylan, listen, making really good progress. Thoroughly well deserved, and hopefully he'll kick on and we'll see what happens with him next year. But yeah, he's probably been the standout because he's made his debut. In terms of the Shrewsbury game, having all those boys involved was incredible. I think we spoke at the time about, I don't know again when the last time there were 5 current academy players in a first team squad. Dylan was the only one on the pitch that night, and again once more. So the next one for us is can we get 2 or 3 more on the pitch, which would be incredible. But listen, just the experience, I think, stands them in good stead being around a first team dressing room, warming up on a first team pitch when there's a crowd, who might give them a bit of stick if they miss a goal in the warm up or whatever, and we can't give them that. That doesn't happen on Saturday when we're playing at the County FA and, it's under 18 football. So the experience in itself is positive, so that they'll only benefit by being around that a little bit. And the other four, listen, obviously, Caden going international duty, incredible. Jay and Charlie, I think, have scored 37 goals between them this year, something like 13 or 14 assists between them. Again, forget whether the team is doing well and winning lots of games. Those two individuals are performing to a high level. They're both training with the first team this morning. It's all five of those currently are in a really good place, and there's four others kind of hot on their heels who, will be chomping at the bit to be the next one. So it's really positive. Yeah, really happy with where that first year group are at.
That's it, yeah. A lot of good stats there in terms of especially Charlie and Jay with the goals and assists they've produced. I think Charlie as well, he had the experience at Southampton, didn't he, on the bench? So again, big progress for him this year. But there's also a lot of big progress for the second years as well, isn't there? A lot of them actually playing men's football out on loan. Well, I know you've mentioned a couple of times yourself and Ryan that may have an effect on the actual 18s team. How big is it for them as individuals going out on loan, spending that time out there playing men's football, playing for 3 points rather than perhaps in the 18s league at this stage of their pathway, if you like?
Yeah, really important. So 2 years ago when I came in, we played in the reserve league, you may remember, and it turned most weeks it was under 18s that went and played in that reserve league, and I remember going to a game with Sads at the time, and I think it was Lincoln, and we lost about 7-0. But you look at the teams, and I think they had like 600 league appearances between them, and I think we had one lad who'd played maybe 5 minutes, right? So there was a real mismatch in terms of, and actually it was too much of a stretch and a challenge for them. So we obviously came out of that at the time, and we've made a conscious effort this year, myself and Ryan, to, from Christmas onwards, get the second years out on loan, to go and get an experience of men's football, go and play where the game's a bit more physical, go and play where, like you say, listen, the manager might get sacked if you lose, and there's a bit more pressure. The way the manager might speak to them could be a bit different to the way maybe we do, right? So they get exposed to some real different experiences. And it's been great, and it creates more work. The bigger clubs have loan managers, right? Whereas it's us that have to, spend every weekend and, whatever, trying to chase and get reports and speak to managers for feedback and so on. But they've all had a chance to be on loan except for Linton, but Linton's had a long-term injury, so hopefully we'll try and get him something for this sort of back end of the season now he's back and playing. But they've all been at either step 4, 5 and 6. George played on Saturday, made his debut for Lytown at step 4, clean sheet away at Rushden Diamonds, which is fabulous. So we think it's the way forward, because it might just help bridge that gap between youth team football and senior football. And listen, make no mistake, the gap is big, and training with first team is very different to playing with adults and first team. The physicality is so different. So we think they've all had a good experience. We think it'll stand them in good stead whatever happens moving forward, and we'll certainly do it again next year. There's a knock-on effect, clearly. It means our under-18s become really young, but again, I think that's of benefit. So we've had 4 under-15s who've played in the under-18s this year, so the value to them playing in the under-18s is really positive. And although it's a stretch, it really helps us in terms of thinking about who's a potential scholar moving forward. How do they cope? How do they just deal with being around a group of under-18s on a match day? Because it's different to the under-15s. So, we think it's the way forward for sure.
You touched on George Barrett there. How are some of the other individuals out on loan? How are they all getting on? What have they done so far in their loans?
Well, they've been... So George has had, I think this might be his 4th loan. He's been at Sheffield and Paget and Dudley, so I think this is his 4th loan. We've got other lads at Paget, we've got lads at Cradley Town currently, we've had lads at Worcester Warriors, so they've all had an experience and an opportunity at it, and sometimes it's really difficult to find the right level, and sometimes they have to have one to then get a move to another. And you start getting requests then from maybe a step 5 team for someone who's been on loan in step 6. So they've all had a chance. Tom Cox, who's a centre back for us, went and played 7 games, I think, for Studley, who are in and around the top part of Step 5. Didn't lose in those 7 games. I think kept 5 clean sheets. So the value of that for him was really positive. He's now spent a lot of time training with the first team group. We'll see where that goes, but really so positive. It's again, there's a knock-on effect because it might mean the under-18s don't win as many games, but that's fine, right? Because the greater value to the individuals is higher. So we'll definitely do the same thing again next year for sure.
And obviously, it's not just the under-18s, is it? And those second-year and first-year scholars. There's the under-17s, the under-15s. A lot of good progress made further down the age groups as well. So just talk us about some of the events of this year for the younger age groups as well.
So the 17s and 15s are the only other 2 age groups that have sort of EFL competitive competitions. They're both playing the floodlit competitions. 17s got themselves into the Northern semi-final. We lost 2-0 away at Blackpool. I think you've probably had a report about that game, so you know how that went. But great experience. Again, the actual value in that for the individuals was actually, on reflection, really positive. Although in the moment we were disappointed, probably. Under 15s went undefeated in their group. Didn't qualify because they won 2, drew 2. Excuse me. And somebody else got 9 points, so they didn't qualify from the group for the knockout stage. But again, beat Crewe in the last game. What was a really, really, it was a proper game of football. It was brilliant to watch, and we came out on the top of it 3-2. Really good game. But again, across that, so we've had under 15s playing under 17s, under 14s playing under 15s competitive football. Really positive, yeah. And it's great for us to see some of those younger players, and the fact we've managed to get day release back this year, where those 13s to 16s come out of school one afternoon a week, means we get to spend a bit more time with them. We've always got one eye on who's the next scholar, who are the next scholars in the building. And having all that time with them and having a chance to play them across age groups in competitive football helps us to make all those sort of decisions around where the individuals are at. So, yeah, really pleased with the 17s and the 15s this year in terms of where they've been and how they've competed.
It's around March 2022 you came back to the club and took on the role as academy manager. So coming up to 2 years, just sum up sort of the journey yourself and the whole academy have been on in that 2 years and the progress that's been made.
I think we had a similar chat last year as 1 year in, I think, and it was, listen, I feel like we've made loads of progress. That's now people will say, well, you would say that because it's you, right? And that's a fair point. But I look across the whole programme, you look at the progression opportunities for players from academy into first team, it's so much tighter than it was even this time last year. And I know Sads at some point over the year has mentioned it's probably as tight now as it's been since maybe Dean was here many years ago, right? So that's really positive. I look across the whole programme in terms of our principles and syllabus has now kind of been in place for about 18 months. So we've got a real clear way we're trying to get academy teams to play, which fits in with where the club is at, what the owners want. We're looking in terms of recruitment. We're really clear around the sort of players we're trying to recruit in terms of the style that we want to try and play. So all that is now sort of embedded a little bit, I think, and it will only grow. And then outside of that stuff, I just think about the turnover of staff, which is really frustrating at times. But again, I look at we've staff who to get taken from us into other environments. Into Cat 1 and Cat 2 clubs, into other professional sports environments in the S&C's case, which means we have to find new staff to fill those roles. But hopefully those new staff bring something different, a new bit of life, which helps us just kick the programme forward again, as they have done. So literally in the last few weeks, we've got a new S&C lead, new head of player care who've just started. So although it's frustrating, it's really exciting because they bring something new and something fresh, and it just helps us lift the programme again. There's no real measure of the off-the-pitch stuff so much, but, we go through an audit process every year, which I guess is a kind of measure as to where you're at. And again, I look at I inherited an audit which had sort of 35 to 40 actions linked to the audit when I came into the building. The current action plan has 5 actions on it from our most recent audit, so we've made significant progress in terms of, you know, all that off the field stuff. So yeah, listen, it's small incremental change all the time to try and make us a little bit better, you know, with the end goal being let's try and get some more footballers through the programme, whilst remembering that all the other stuff, hopefully if they're not going to be a footballer, it helps them with, you know, whether it's college, uni, or wherever they go next in their journey. So really happy with where we've got to. There's loads more to do, Paul. You know, it's you know, we've chipped away a little bit, but there's so much more we can do. But really happy with where we've got to.